Imagine being so poor you have to move houses almost every few months. Imagine being bullied so badly you end up in a coma. Imagine being told you will never, ever succeed in the one thing you love more than anything else. Now, imagine that same kid growing up to become one of the greatest and most influential rappers in history, selling over 220 million records worldwide. This is the incredible, raw, and unfiltered story of Eminem, the boy from Detroit who turned his immense pain into powerful poetry and his burning anger into legendary music. Before the world knew him as the rap god Eminem, he was Marshall Bruce Mathers III. Born in 1972 in St. Joseph, Missouri, Marshall's life was chaotic from the very beginning. His father abandoned the family when he was just a baby, leaving his young mother, Debbie Mathers, to raise him all on her own. Life was a constant struggle. They were always moving, bouncing between Missouri and the rough neighborhoods of Detroit, sometimes changing homes 2 or 3 times in a single year. This constant upheaval meant Marshall never had the chance to settle down, to make real friends. Instead of finding friendship, he found himself a target. He became the kid the bullies picked on relentlessly. One particularly brutal attack was so severe that it left him with a serious head injury and sent him into a coma for several days. It was a terrifying time, filled with loneliness and isolation. But it was during these dark and lonely years that Marshall discovered something that would completely change the course of his life forever. Hip-hop. He became absolutely obsessed with rap music. He would listen for hours, studying the lyrics, the flow, the rhythm. Artists like L. Cool J Ice-T and Run DMC became his heroes and his teachers. He was inspired. He knew, deep down, that this was what he was meant to do. But there was one massive, glaring problem. Marshall was a skinny white kid trying to make it in a genre and a culture completely dominated by black artists. When he tried to rap, people laughed in his face. They mocked him. They dismissed him. They told him he would never belong, that he was just a joke. But Marshall didn't listen. He refused to stop. That ridicule just fueled his fire. He practiced every single day, relentlessly. He filled notebooks with rhymes. He dove headfirst into rap battles in the gritty underground clubs of Detroit, sharpening his words like a swordsman sharpens his blade. He was honing his craft, turning his voice into a weapon. And slowly but surely, the Detroit underground rap scene started to take notice. This wasn't just some wannabe. This kid had real talent, and it was here that Marshall adopted a new name for himself, a name that would one day become legendary. Eminem. But even with his undeniable talent, Marshall's life was still a mess. It felt like he was constantly falling apart. He eventually dropped out of high school after failing the 9th grade 3 times. He worked a series of dead-end low-paying jobs, from a cook to a dishwasher, just trying to make ends meet and support his newborn daughter, Haley Jade. The struggle was real, and it was relentless. There was a point where he was so broke, he could barely afford to buy food for his family, let alone diapers. In 1996, he scraped together enough money to release his first album, Infinite. He poured his heart and soul into it, hoping it would be his big break. Instead, it was a complete and utter failure. The album sold maybe 1,000 copies. Critics ignored it. Record labels flat out rejected him. The crushing weight of failure and poverty pushed Marshall into a deep depression. He felt like a total failure as a rapper, as a father, as a man. He even considered giving up on music for good. It seemed like the dream was dead. But fate, it turns out, had other plans. Instead of quitting, Marshall did something radical. He created a new persona, an alter ego, a darker, angrier, more chaotic, and completely uncensored version of himself. He called this persona Slim Shady. Slim Shady was everything Marshall was afraid to be. He said the things Marshall was too afraid to say, articulating all the rage, frustration, and dark humor that had been boiling inside him for years. This new, aggressive style was his last-ditch effort, and when he released the Slim Shady LP in 1999, the world absolutely exploded. The album was shocking. It was hilarious. It was offensive, and it was brilliant. It caught the attention of one of the most legendary producers in music history, Dr. Dre. Dre saw the raw talent and the unique genius in Eminem, and together, they were about to change hip-hop forever. With Dr. Dre's backing, Eminem became a global sensation almost overnight. The world had never heard anything like him. After the massive success of Slim Shady, there was no looking back. What followed was a string of even bigger successes. Albums like the Marshall Mathers LP and the Eminem Show didn't just top the charts. They shattered sales records worldwide. Eminem became known for his brutal honesty, his completely unfiltered and often controversial lyrics, and his insane, mind-bending rhyme skills. He wasn't just a rapper. He was a cultural phenomenon. Then came one of his biggest cultural moments yet, the 2002 movie 8 Mile. The film was semi-autobiographical, inspired by his real-life struggles growing up in Detroit, and its soundtrack produced one of the most iconic and motivational songs of all time, Lose Yourself. The track was a massive hit, and it went on to win an Academy Award for Best Original Song. This was a historic moment. No rapper had ever won an Oscar before. Eminem had broken through a barrier that many thought was impossible. He was on top of the world. But behind the fame, the awards, and the millions of records sold, Eminem was fighting a dangerous and private battle, a battle with addiction. The pressures of fame led him down a dark path of prescription drug abuse. The pills that were supposed to help him sleep and cope with the stress were destroying his life. In 2007, his addiction reached a terrifying climax when he suffered a serious overdose. Doctors told him he was just hours away from dying. For a moment, it looked like the incredible story of Eminem might end right there. A tragic tale of talent lost to addiction. But just as he had done his entire life, he fought back from the brink. He got clean. He got sober. And he returned to music stronger and more focused than ever. Albums like Recovery and the Marshall Mathers LP2 weren't just comebacks. They were declarations. They proved to the world that he still dominated the rap world. And his song Rap God absolutely shocked everyone. Featuring one of the fastest and most technically complex rap verses ever recorded. From a bullied, lonely kid moving from house to house, to a broke dreamer on the verge of giving up, to one of the greatest and most respected rappers of all time. Eminem's story proves something powerful. Sometimes, the people who endure the most painful beginnings are the ones who create the most legendary endings. His journey shows us the power of turning pain into art and adversity into strength. So, what do you think? Is Eminem the greatest rapper of all time? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you want more insane real-life stories just like this one, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because the next story we have for you might be even crazier. Thanks for watching.